Okay, so the first thing that I did to kind of, get started with some outside engagement was, heading to Code Academy to help me just really get the fundamentals down. I had had some previous experience with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with Code Academy back in 2012, but after kind of going through, and I don't think that I finished all of those modules, even, I mean, I didn't actually use it and apply it, ever since. So in the, 5 years since then, I mean, I pretty much had, forgotten almost all of it. So I knew that they had a Python module now, and so went to start that, and found it to be incredible helpful just getting that extra practice doing the physical programming. I mean, typing out the code so that I knew how to do work with strings and output, that I knew how to um, do, if statements correctly, and, if this, and this, or if this, or this, or not equals to this, and then working with, functions, lists and dictionaries, lists and functions, loops, and so a lot of the material, translated, pretty much on a, on a one-to-one, basis with the material that was covered in the class, at least at, some point or another. And though there's also areas that were not involved in the class, some of the advanced topics they did some string some concatenation type stuff, not just with strings, but also with lists and dictionaries, and the bitwise operators of the doing work with the binary bit operations, XOR, and not, and converting from decimal to binary with Python, and vice versa, which, I mean, especially with the bitwise operators, that was not easy for me to wrap my head around. I was glad when I was doing that, they're like, you're not probably going to anticipate this too often in programming, but from time to time you will, and it's important to be familiar with it. I'm like, oh geez, if I had to, um, I guess it gives me a real appreciation for people who originally had to complete programming in assembly language. And then classes which were not covered for assignments in this class, which I could definitely see how that would be incredibly beneficial in writing future programs. Beyond the Python module which I completed, there was also a command line module that I did not know that Code Academy had. But since there was a Linux component to this class, and not only that, but there was also um, having Linux component in my ISIN 200 Secure Digital Technologies class this semester, that all three of these really worked well to give me a good basic foundation of using Linux, because I had no experience prior to this. I had downloaded a couple Linux distributions previously, but with the best intentions to always learn it, because it was a skill that I wanted to be able to have in my back pocket, especially knowing how, I mean, especially in a network environment, server environment, how prevalent Linux is. It was a skill that it was like, well, you're gonna have to learn this sooner or later, and so having this just as a way to get my feet wet, I found beneficial. The HTML module, I did the very introductory one. There's also another one, the make a website one, that will be a little more in depth, that I didn't quite find the time for. In addition to, there was the CSS module, which I actually liked the CSS portion the um, of this core, or of the HTML web page web development kind of side of this course a lot more than almost anything else. I found the kind of the design aspect, just being able to like see what I was doing and changing it and playing around with things, I thought was fun. So I could definitely see myself coming back to this, maybe even over Christmas break, just because it actually was something that was fun. So it just happened to be that I didn't end up finishing this module despite that. So I don't know why that was, but I'll be back. Though the outside engagement portion of the class that I spent definitely the most time on was the tutoring section of the class. It started um, with Sarah, who got a hold of me through course messages saying that she was, struggling, and I reached out saying that I was willing to help. And so we talked back via, Google, Hangouts, and then would, kind of go back and forth. And I had her share her Cloud9 workspace with me so that I was able to, see what she was doing in real time to kind of give her feedback. And then talking through chat the whole time as we, kind of work through the assignment. And I tried to kind of explain, the programming concepts and, and the syntax and, how things are working and why, and then trying to, have it so that she would be able to then, kind of repeat back to me line by line what was happening in the code, and, doing things like adding, type statements, or, wrapping a variable in a type statement so you'll be able to see, what it is that you're working with, or adding print statements, at different, sections down the line, and commenting things in, commenting things out, so that you're able to, see what your code is doing. Because for her, it seemed like the hardest, part was not being able to like see in that visualization aspect of programming. And then eventually, lot it wasn't like eventually, it was pretty early on that she said that that Laura was someone who had also reached out and was having trouble with the course. And so we initially we found time to meet together, and we are still talking via Google Hangouts while I had them share their Cloud9 workspaces, so I could so I'm seeing that information in real time to be able to give feedback, which I mean did work after a fashion, though. Here it was October 2nd. It was Sarah said, if it weren't for you, honestly, I probably would have dropped the class. I mean, unfortunately, she still ended up doing that later. I kind of wish you lived in GR though, so we could all meet and do it in person. Which I was like, I do live in Grand Rapids. I mean, Ferris stateside student that's taking everything here. So we made time to meet, and ended up being on Thursdays at the Tim Hortons on Plainfield. And so after talking and doing work through Google Hangouts for quite some time, ended up going through and meeting in person, which just made it just a little bit easier than working online. And Laura was kind enough after our last meeting, which was yesterday. I had our final tutoring session on Thursday. Was kind enough to write a letter, which I definitely appreciated, so I could use that for my engagement, saying that wanted to share what a wonderful job Jonathan did with tutoring this semester. As you know, I was seriously struggling with this subject and was pretty sure I wasn't going to pass. I took your advice and found a classmate who was willing and able to tutor. That classmate was Jonathan. He met with me every Thursday, except for Thanksgiving, when he met with me on Friday. Yes, he met me over the holiday weekend. He was always prepared, making sure he had his own homework completed before meeting. He was extremely patient as I clawed my way to understanding a subject that is very difficult for me. He was very good about not giving me the answers, but pointing me in the direction I needed to look to find them. This was instrumental in me being able to complete the last assignment largely on my own, except for a few missing quotes. I am very grateful for the time that he gave me, and I'm looking forward to continuing with Python on my own through Code Academy. Sincerely, Laura Erickson. And I mean, I could tell that she had made a lot of improvement from where we started, when she, joined our conversation on October 2nd, and to where she was when she wrote that for me, yesterday. For the most part, that actually was, the easiest tutoring session that I had, because she was taking, database security concurrently. So she had had the experience, with SQL, and I was kind of, sitting there keeping my eye on her Cloud9 workspace as she was working through those to-do sections and through what the homework was asking for, and she basically had it all on her own. There's only a few small things. There was like a hiccup with the parameterized, query for, for MySQL. And, once she, was able to kind of stumble through and get the syntax for that, I mean, the rest of the assignment really just, fell into place for her. So from where, we had, started at to where she was at, now, she had made a lot of improvement, though, it was not all, selfless because, one of the things that, I found is that by doing this and, tutoring, I learned the concepts, so much more than I would have otherwise. I mean, if I had just gone through and, quickly read through, what was in, the textbook and then, watch the, the videos and go through and work through the assignment and not taken the time to be teaching that to somebody else, I would not have had nearly the I mean, I feel really strong on all of the material that we covered in class. And, it's at the point now where, I mean, I'm not even making kind of those, typo mistakes that I used to. And when I am, and I do see a mistake, I mean, it was really, easy for me, like, oh, that's what I did. And so the mistakes got, a little bit, simpler. And, thinking about the logic of, how an assignment actually needed to work became, just an easier concept for me to grasp. I mean, there was, a couple, times in the semester where it was just like really, racking my head trying to, puzzle out, how I was going to, make this work like from a programming standpoint and trying to, figure things out. Though the more practice that I got and the more time that I spent, preparing myself to teach that to someone else and trying to think of things in, more than one way. Because with program, there is, more than one way to do something. There's more than one way to think about something. And so, like, thinking of some of the alternative ways to go about something so that maybe that might actually be something that clicked with Laura or Sarah, more than the way that maybe I did it. And so, that was a really beneficial experience. Enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed this class a lot, and I'm looking forward to programming more in the future. Um, Partly because it's something that I will need more experience with, but probably more than that, it's something that I actually enjoyed and had a lot of fun with. And so I'm looking forward to kind of playing around more and creating some things. Thank you.